There's probably going to be some bad language in this, so you might not want to let the kids watch. Wino here, bit of a different video today because surprise, surprise, the wino's sober. Got some shit to do later, haven't been able to get on the sauce. Let's see if I can keep my thoughts straight without my juice, without my medicine. But anyway, we're here to talk about the fight night card from yesterday, Korean Zombie versus Dan Ige. And starting at the top, as usual, what a performance by the Korean Zombie. Ige made a fight of it, definitely, but that was Zombie's fight. No question about it. Bisping, once again, in his definitiveness of his version of scoring in the last round, said Zombie's definitely 4 rounds up. I don't necessarily agree with that. The judges certainly didn't because Ige got at least 1 round on all their cards. I believe it was 48-47 and 2 49-46s. Personally, I had it 48-46. I gave Ige the first and fourth, but by a hair, by a whisker. You could definitely argue for Zombie winning both of those rounds. And then I gave Zombie the second, third, and fifth all definitively, with Zombie getting a 10-8 in the third in my books because of the complete shutout with the grappling. So in the first round, Ige certainly started a lot stronger, a lot sharper. He was very crisp, had his timing in earlier than Zombie did, and won the start of the round. Zombie did start landing some shots too, but then he got the takedown and had some good time on top. Didn't do a lot with his time on top, but still had that takedown as a point of difference. Then when they got back up, it was pretty close with the striking, but I think Ige did enough, what with him winning the striking earlier in the round, not getting too much done against him in the takedown, and then enough keeping it somewhat even with the striking at the end for him to edge that round. But I would totally understand people making the argument for Zombie winning it. Then we had the second round, and this was clearly Zombie. Got the knockdown like almost straight away. As soon as Ige got straight back up, landed another big uppercut, and was just edging him on the striking throughout the whole round. Landed the much more impactful shots, and that was the story of the whole fight, really. Even when Ige could get in, hit some crisp shots, Zombies always seemed to have a little more behind him. Third round, Zombie got the takedown almost immediately. Such good timing on that takedown. And he just kept it there for the whole round, on his back for pretty much the whole round, like on Ige's back, which is one of the 2 most dominant positions to be on the ground, and threatening that rear naked choke the whole time. So he didn't do a lot of damage in that round, but the fact that he completely shut Ige out of the conversation makes it a 10-8 in my book. And then the fourth round was another really close one. They were striking for most of the round, for about the first 4 minutes, even a little more of the round. And I had Ige just slightly winning on those strikes, landing a bit more, similar levels of impact on their strikes. Zombie did get a takedown towards the end and pretty much kept it there. So once again, the point of difference of the takedown and Zombie finishing the round on top, I could see the arguments for him winning that. And, completely understand if anyone scored that round for Zombie. But, I edged that to Ige by a hair. So I had them 2 rounds each going into the last, but with Zombie getting a 10-8 in the third. Then the fifth round was Zombie. Like, Ige landed a good little combination right at the start, a body head. I think it was an overhand right that landed to the head flush, and was probably edging the striking down for most of the round. But then he went in on a bit of a takedown, and Zombie landed a flush knee to the head. And it didn't fully drop him, but it did kind of like stun him a bit, and he went to his knees to try to continue the takedown, and Zombie just used the position and kind of switched it around on him, got on top, and kept him down once again, much like in the third, got on his back and kept it there for the rest of the round. So clear win for Zombie in my book. Thank God he won, because I had some money on him to win by decision, and all my other bets had lost that day. So he won my money back and a little bit of a profit, not much. But yes, end of the day, Zombie got it done. I think the reason Zombie was the underdog in that is just because of this recency bias that people have in MMA. I'm a big fan of Ige. I think he's got, a lot of promise, but where they are in their careers, the level of opponents they've had, their performances against those opponents. I know Zombie pretty much got completely shut out by Ortega in his last match, but he's beaten some of the greats and looked really good against them. Ige's fought some top-notch guys, but hasn't beaten anyone to the caliber Zombie has, except maybe Edson Barboza, in which I thought Barboza won the Ige fight anyway. Then the next fight down the card, we had the co-main event, Alexei Olenek versus Sergey Spivak. Olenek got the first round. Spivak was doing well to stop the clinch, getting out of the clinch the whole time, and he was probably landing more shots. This is a theme throughout the card now that I think about it. One guy landing more shots, but the other guy landing more powerful shots, because I think Olenek was making a fight of it on the feet, and when he landed, his shots landed with a lot more power, which is supposed to be weighed heavier in the eyes of the judges. And then he got around the back, dragged him down from the back, and looked great once he did that. Used his great jiu-jitsu to switch positions, get to the mount, go for the scarf hold. All of that looked completely dominant when he could get it to the ground. I think he lost this fight on two unforced errors, like two mistakes he made, one in the second and one in the third, both around takedowns, and both, I think, because of exhaustion. I think he gassed pretty early. And the first one was in the second round. He tried to pull guard, and he did, but I think that was a bad idea against Spivak, because Spivak is a top-class grappler himself. Like, Olenek showed that he's probably the better grappler because he did a lot more on top than Spivak could do when he was on top. But Spivak is at least a good enough grappler to stop Olenek from being able to sweep him for nearly the whole round. Right at the end of the round, Olenek did sweep him, but there wasn't anywhere near enough time left in the round for him to steal the round back after giving away, 4.5 minutes of that round by pulling guard. And then the third round, Spivak, Olenek looked completely gassed at this point. Spivak looked pretty tired too. And he was landing some good shots at the start, but then Olenek started to have a little period where he was landing flush, and he looked to even stun Spivak a little bit, backed him up to the cage, and then went in on a double leg. And this is where he made the second mistake, because he was so tired. Spivak was defending it again, and then he switched it to a single, but kind of like on the wrong leg, on the wrong side, and just gave Spivak the opportunity to basically step over and lay on top of him and get on top. And that's how we saw the rest of the round play out. Spivak just on top, Olenek unable to sweep like he ended up doing in the second, and clear win for Spivak, due mostly to Olenek's mistakes caused by his own exhaustion. I've noticed he's been getting tired easier and easier in his last few fights. He's never had the best gas tank, but his last few fights he's gassed really quickly. So maybe that age is catching up with him a bit, especially with his grapple-heavy game plan. Like, you'll really tire yourself out. And his type of grappling, yes, it's very technical, but it also uses a lot of muscle, a lot of power. I think age is catching up with old Alexei a little bit. Then we go down the next card, and for me, fight of the night, Davey Grant versus Chito Vera. Oh my God. So back and forth, both guys landing huge shots all over the place. And Davey had the first round for my mind. Marlon, I think, got the second, and then 10-8 for Marlon in the third. He just showed his, complete warrior spirit, never given up, wearing Davey down throughout the fight. And Davey showed his warrior spirit too, because he was absolutely buggered coming into the third round, but he also never gave up. And Marlon had a close rear naked choke towards the end of that round, and Davey didn't tap and ended up fighting his way out of it, even though he had no gas left. So great win for Chito Vera, absolute banger of a fight. And next fight down the card, we have, give me a second here. Choi versus Rosa. Now, this isn't the first. This is the last in a string of really significant, formidable knockouts in this card. Some real flatliners. And Choi just was looking sharper than Rosa from the start. And Rosa's defense didn't seem to be there. Rosa ruined my multi, by the way. That was one of the bets I had on. Another bet I had on was head-to-head Olenek. I was, probably leaning Spivak, but Olenek was at $3, and I'm like, oh, got to give him some respect. Same mistake I made last week with Maya. But it does work out for me quite often, that little tactic. So tried it this week. And my multi I had on was Casey O'Neill, Matt Brown, Julian Rosa, and Korean Zombie. All underdogs, and 3 out of 4 of them won. So there was room to make some money on this card. And, Choi versus Rosa. Choi just looked so sharp. One, his accuracy straight away, and also the power that he showed immediately. And just knocked Juicy J out flat, and did it pretty early as well. So not too much else to say about that, except let's see where Choi goes from here. Then next down, we had another big knockout. Bruno Silva making his debut against Wellington Turman. And Turman was throwing the grappling in straight away, getting on his back. But Silva was, showing that he's no slouch in the grappling and fighting it off continuously. And eventually, I believe he slid Turman off the top of his back. Forgive me, it was yesterday that I watched it, so my memory might not be perfect. And ended up on top. And I know this is how it ended. Ended with solid ground and pound from the top. He had so much power in those ground and pound shots. Like, landed a left hook with ground and pound. You don't see that much. It's more like coming down with the shots. And the left hook's the one that kind of put Turman cold. And another flatline KO. And Brown versus Lima, flatline KO again. And this one was quite interesting, very closely contested, very technical fight, very cagey fight. Wasn't the straight up banger you may have been expecting coming in. And it was mostly a leg kick battle up until the knockout. I think Lima won the first round. He outlanded Matt Brown. But you could argue for Matt Brown winning it because Lima pretty much only landed the leg kicks. Matt Brown landed his own leg kicks. He landed the single biggest leg kick in the round, one where he stepped inside and landed just an absolute talker to the thigh. And he also landed, a big body kick, maybe a couple, and some other shots, a bit of a variety of shots. But just the level at which Lima outlanded Brown, I think counteracted the most powerful shot that Brown had, and he was landing with some good significance to the calf as well. So even if you were going to say they were equal on strikes, he was the one coming forward for most of it. I believe Matt was stalking forward pretty well as well, though. But mainly on the volume, I gave Lima that first round. Second round was looking even better for Lima. He was keeping up the volume, and Matt was getting outstruck by even more. Plus, Lima mixed in a bit of grappling. Not hugely effective grappling, mainly just cage control. But hey, control does score somewhat. Not hugely, but a bit. But then after a period of cage control, Matt getting off and them separating, they came in, they both threw at the same time. Matt landed first and one shot, flat line, face to the canvas, KO. And loved seeing it. I like Diego, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I loved seeing him get knocked out. But, who doesn't love Matt Brown? Who doesn't love the immortal? So great to see him get a win and soldier on in his career. Who knows how many fights we got left of him because he is getting on in age. All right. So that opened up the main card. So I'll go from the bottom of the prelims and come back up, sandwich it, finish with the featured prelim. The first fight of the prelims was a good fight and a really good performance by Casey O'Neill. She's lived in Australia for a good chunk of her life. She's fighting out of Australia, but she definitely seems to represent Scotland a bit more, the country of her birth, where a lot of her family still lives. And that's fine. Good for her. She is who she is. But, you know, there's still a bit of Aussie tinge of pride in there, even though she's mainly Scottish and seems to be happy to represent that. But in terms of the fight, that was absolutely a great performance. I gave Procopio the first round. I thought she landed the more significant strikes. The striking was somewhat close, but Procopio seemed to be landing with a bit more power. And even though Casey finished on top at the end, she only got on top right at the end and didn't have much time to do with it. She was looking aggressive on top. She wasn't just like laying there. But I think Procopio had already done enough earlier in the round to win that one. Second round was pretty much all Casey. Like, Procopio got a takedown towards the start, but you could argue that Casey was winning off her back because she had the old TK guard, the feet on the hips, a variation of butterfly guard, and was using that to keep Procopio off balance and make Procopio keep focusing on position rather than being able to do any damage. Meanwhile, Casey's landing elbows from the bottom. So I think she won from the bottom in that little stanza. And then they got up and she got the better of Procopio on the feet for a little period. And then she took Procopio down and absolutely dominated from the top. And then the third round was, just continued somewhat domination from Casey, which was interesting because the commentary were all about like, oh, she might not want to take Procopio down towards the start of the fight. And by the end of it, it's like, nah, getting it down is where she did her best work. And as soon as it went down, she got into this inverted crucifix position. That was very interesting. Bisping called it, looked very much like Gary Goodridge from very early days of the UFC. And she was throwing some elbows from there. And from there, she was able to transition to mount, which was very impressive. From mount, she transitioned to the back, and she got a rear naked choke in. And kudos to the toughness of Procopio. She didn't tap. She just went night-night. She got choked out. And fantastic performance by Casey O'Neill. Very exciting to see where she goes next in her career. Next fight on the card was Glenn versus Silva, another one of these huge knockouts and another one that happened really early. Glenn pretty much came straight out. It was probably about 30 seconds in, and he just landed a absolute smacker of a right hand and dropped Silva. Silva tried to get up and he smacked him again, kind of like before he'd even got up, knocking him back down. And then he did get up and he knocked him down a third time. And it was just like, lights out, it's done. Haven't seen Rick Glenn for a while, so good to see him come back with such a good performance. And upper division, he's always been a featherweight, and now he's gone up to lightweight. So good introduction to the division against a decent dude in Joaquin Silva, who I think lost his last fight as well. So yeah, bit of a tough period for Silva right now. Then we had Parisian versus Martinez, closely contested fight. Martinez won the first round pretty clearly. The story of this fight was both of these guys did what Eric Anders should have done last week, when Eric Anders was holding Darren Stewart up against the cage and basically just holding him there for most of the round and not doing anything with it. Both of these guys got time when they were clinching against the cage, and just like Randy Couture used to do, they actually caused damage against the cage, landed big strikes in the clinch. And it was basically Martinez doing it to Parisian in the first round and Parisian doing it to Martinez in the second. When they were at distance, Parisian did look much more effective because he had a much better reach. And then in the third, Parisian was outstriking, but Martinez landed the single most significant little sequence where he landed like a 3 or 4 punch combination. They were strong punches. They looked to stun Parisian a bit, back him up, but Parisian did turn it around again. More cage time, more strikes against the cage. I think he probably did edge that round, but I wouldn't have been surprised if that round went to Martinez. So split decision makes sense because, you could argue either way, especially for that third round, I believe it was. But at the end of the day, fine with the decision. Good fight by both guys. Not the best fight you'll ever see in your life, but nice, entertaining fight where both guys were giving it their all. Then we had Williams versus Semmelsberger, and these guys made a real scrap of it. It was basically a story of Williams landing 3 or 4 to Semmelsberger's 1 every time. And Williams was landing with pretty much just about as much impact as Semmelsberger. If you look back, maybe the few most significant strikes in the fight came from Semmelsberger, but because he got so largely outstruck in pretty much every round, that is a good reason why Williams got given those rounds. And yeah, very entertaining fight, and the right guy won on the card. Semmelsberger, look, still got a lot of promise, and looking forward to seeing what he does. But yep, Chaos Williams gets another win on the board. Jandiroba versus Morata. This is a story of toughness from Morata because Jandiroba was winning on the feet. She clearly had the better distance striking, the better striking, full stop. Morata tried to bring it to her world, bring it in the clinch, going for a takedown. She didn't even have to really go for the takedown for long because Jandiroba gave it to her. She pulled guard and close to the fence too, which is risky because you don't have a lot of room to work for your sweeps or work for your subs. But clearly Jandiroba had enough room because she pulled out, she worked her way into an armbar, and goddamn was this armbar close. Second week in a row, we've seen someone basically have their arm snapped with an armbar. This one didn't look as bad as Jamal Hill last week. Didn't get fully dislocated at the wrong angle, but it might be worse because I didn't see at the end of the fight whether we found out if it was a break or a dislocation. As bad as Hill's looked, it was a dislocation. So that can heal pretty quickly. You pop it back in and then, a couple of weeks. Sometimes it's good straight away, but generally like a few weeks and it's going to be fine. Whereas a break can take a long time to heal. But Morata never tapped. She actually worked her way out of it and got to the next round. And Jandiroba won that round off her back before even realizing how much damage that armbar did. Once you realize how much damage it did, you definitely give that round to Jandiroba. But even without realizing how much damage it did, that armbar was still more significant than what Morata did from the top. And that's saying a lot because Morata was landing some good ground and pound from the top. She wasn't just laying there. She was landing not just punches, but good, strong punches. And that armbar was just too much for her. The second round, not too much for her scoring-wise, because like I said, she got through it. In the end, it was too much for her because the second round she came out and she was just kind of holding it like that the whole time. Something clearly wrong with it. She couldn't bring it up to defend herself on that side, on her left side. She also couldn't let it drop. So it was just kind of stuck in this situation, and Jandiroba just picked her off for the whole round, sniped her with punches and one massive head kick for the whole round. And in between rounds, like it was obvious to everyone something was wrong with Morata's arm, and the doctor came and checked her arm in between rounds and waved it straight off. So TKO in between rounds. So round 2 TKO for Jandiroba. Very impressive win for her, and also absolute inspiring display of grit and toughness from Morata to not just not tap to that armbar, but to keep fighting on until the ref called it between, like doing a whole other round before the ref called it in between the second and third. And then the featured prelim was Negamerianu against Alexa Kamaru, and really fun fight. Once again, kind of the story of the card. It was a story of Kamaru probably landing more strikes, but Negumereanu landing the more significant strikes and keeping the numbers close enough together that the significance of his strikes outweighed the volume of Kamuru's strikes. And it wasn't just pure volume from Kamaru either, because he was landing some really strong shots of his own. It's just that on at least 2 occasions, maybe more, he actually seemed to get a bit stunned, maybe not even quite wobbled, but stunned and backed up by Negumereanu's shots. Kamaru was definitely winning the start of the first round. Then Negumereanu landed a few shots that really seemed to rock Kamaru a bit. And at the end of a flurry of those, he went into a clinch and got a takedown. And didn't do a whole lot with it, but when they got back up, once again, both trading shots and Negumereanu landing the stronger stuff. And yeah, we saw similar stories in the second and third round. So I can see arguments for it going to Kamaru. He did look sharper and he had more volume, but yeah, the impact was certainly on Negumereanu's side, and 2 out of 3 judges saw it that way. So that was the whole card. It was a sleeper of a card. It was, not a huge amount of hype behind it, but some fun fights on there and some absolutely cracking knockouts, as well as some great decisions. Like the fight of the night, to me, was the decision between Davy Grant and Marlon Vera. Pretty sure it was a decision anyway. It happened yesterday. I'll just double check that it was. Yeah, unanimous decision. And the decision between Shang Tsung Jung and Dan Ige, that was a lot of fun too. It was somewhat closely contested. I think it was a pretty clear win for Zombie in the end, but Dan Ige did enough to make it a contest and make it a really exciting fight. So great job by both guys. I'll see all you rat bags for this week's Ultimate Fighter review on Wednesday night here in Australia, and looking forward to it. Looking forward to the end of the day when I can get me bloody medicine back in me. Have a good one. Wino out.